Abuse, neglect, exploitation, and misappropriation of property in nursing homes. What you need to know. This presentation provides information, actions, and resources for preventing and reporting abuse, neglect, exploitation, and misappropriation of property. What is abuse? Abuse is a deliberate act that results in physical harm, pain, or mental anguish. It can be physical, verbal, sexual, or mental. Abusers can be staff, residents, or visitors. Let's look at some examples and signs of abuse. There are 4 types of abuse: physical, verbal, mental, or sexual. Examples of abuse include rough handling, withholding care or assistance, isolating or restricting a resident, improper use of physical or chemical restraints, yelling, ridiculing, hitting, pushing, grabbing, or taking or using photographs or recordings of residents that would demean or humiliate a resident. Signs of abuse include unusual bruising, unexplained injury, or sudden changes in a resident's behavior or activities. Next, let's look at neglect. Neglect is the failure by the nursing home, its staff, or outside service providers to provide services and goods to a resident that are necessary to avoid physical harm, pain, mental anguish, or emotional distress. Keep in mind that neglect may or may not be intentional. Oftentimes, neglect is unintentional and is a result of inadequate staffing. Examples of neglect include untreated bed sores, dehydration, unexplained weight loss, poor hygiene and appearance, delayed contact to medical personnel, including not being responsive to requests for assistance, or residents wandering away from the facility, unexplained falls or injuries, or unsanitary and unclean conditions. Next, we'll look at exploitation. Exploitation is defined as taking advantage of a resident for personal gain through the use of manipulation, intimidation, threats, or coercion. Examples of exploitation include coercing or deceiving a resident to sign documents, such as a will or contract, unknown charges to the resident's credit card, stopping the resident from using his or her own money, or withholding information about the resident's finances, or not placing a resident's money in a separate interest-bearing account where required, or taking or using photographs or recordings of residents that would demean or humiliate a resident. Lastly, we'll look at misappropriation of property. Misappropriation of property is defined as the deliberate misplacement, exploitation, or wrongful, temporary, or permanent use of a resident's belongings or money without the resident's consent. Examples include stealing or embezzling a resident's money or personal property, such as real estate, jewelry, or clothing, or forging a resident's signature, and attempting to cash a check or cashing a check, or using a resident's personal property, such as a TV, clothing, or phone. Now that we know what abuse, neglect, exploitation, and misappropriation of property are and how to identify them, how can these things be prevented? Know and exercise your rights. Nursing homes are required to inform residents about their rights in plain language that the residents are able to understand. They are also required to explain these rights to residents. Residents' rights include the right to be free from abuse, neglect, misappropriation, and exploitation. This includes corporal punishment, involuntary seclusion, and any physical or chemical restraint not required to treat the resident's medical condition. Another resident's right is the right to voice grievances and the right to get contact information and talk to your Ombudsman Program representative. So, how can we take action to prevent abuse, neglect, exploitation, and misappropriation and ensure that residents' rights are upheld? Get to know your Ombudsman Program representative. The Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program advocates for individuals living in nursing homes, boarding care homes, assisted living facilities, and other similar adult care homes. They provide information about finding facilities and getting quality care. Ombudsmen are trained to resolve problems. Every state is required to have an ombudsman program that addresses complaints and advocates for improvements in the long-term care system. How else can you take action? Get to know the nursing home staff. Participate in care plan meetings. Speak up if something doesn't feel right or you're not getting the care you need. Connect with other residents who stay in their rooms or have few visitors. Participate in the resident council or start one. Report any suspicions you have of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. What are additional actions family members and friends can take, especially for residents who are not able to advocate for themselves? Visit regularly. Observe the resident for unusual bruising, behaviors, weight loss, or appearance. Participate in or form a family council. Encourage and assist the resident in becoming more informed, connecting with others, and speaking up. And get to know the Ombudsman Program. So, what is the nursing home required to do? Nursing homes must provide individualized care to support or improve each resident's well-being. Have policies and procedures to prevent and address abuse, neglect, exploitation, and misappropriation of property. Screen, train, and supervise employees. Investigate allegations of abuse and take corrective action. Protect residents during and after an investigation. Report allegations to the State Licensing and Certification Agency and/or the Adult Protective Services. If an alleged crime against a resident may have occurred, report to law enforcement. And the nursing home must prohibit and prevent retaliation. Next, let's look at why reporting abuse is so important. What are the potential resolutions or outcomes from reporting abuse? The resident receives added support and protection. An investigation is conducted. There are improvements in preventing abuse and protecting all residents. If found guilty, a perpetrator's license can be revoked, and criminal acts can be prosecuted. If you need assistance with the report, your Ombudsman Program representative or a trusted family member, friend, or staff person can help you. But how do you make a report? Put your report in writing, date it, and keep a copy. Provide as much information as possible, including who, what, where, and when. Be sure to keep a copy of the report for your records. Give your report to the nursing home's administrator, director of nursing, and social worker. Also, to the state survey agency. Every state has an agency responsible for the licensing, certification, and regulation of long-term care facilities. This agency also investigates complaints. Facilities are required to post contact information for complaints. To locate your state survey agency, visit www.ltcombudsman.org/ombudsman. In addition to reporting to nursing home staff and your state licensing and certification agency, you can also make your report to the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. For additional information and contact information, visit www.ltcombudsman.org/ombudsman. Also make a report to the Adult Protective Services, or APS. APS investigates reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of elders and, in many states, individuals with disabilities. To locate APS services in your area, visit www.napsa-now.org/report. And finally, make a report with local law enforcement, as the abuse could be a crime. So you filed your reports, now what can you do? If you're a family or friend, make sure that the abuse, neglect, or exploitation has stopped and that the resident is getting the support he or she needs. Follow up with the person or agency conducting the investigation. Ask for written copies of findings if allowed by law. Substantiated findings by a state survey agency or a finding of guilt by a court that a nurse aide or licensed staff person has abused, neglect, or exploited a resident or misappropriated their property must be reported to the State Nurse Aid Registry or the State Licensing Board. Facilities must not engage individuals with these findings or individuals who have had a disciplinary action taken against his or her professional license, meaning facilities must not hire the individual or allow them to volunteer. What about retaliation? There are strict laws prohibiting acts of retaliation. If you or a loved one experiences retaliation, you can contact the state survey agency that licenses, certifies, and regulates nursing homes. Your Ombudsman Program representative can support you, and with your permission, act quickly if there are any signs of retaliation. To find more information on these issues, visit the National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care and the National Long-Term Care Ombudsman Resource Center's websites. These resources can help find information on abuse, neglect, and exploitation, and information on the federal nursing home regulations. Plus, you can locate and learn about the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. Thank you for watching our presentation.